Lesson 112. In this lesson, we're going to use all of the skills that we've been working on throughout this unit for adding and subtracting fractions and mixed numbers. And we're going to apply them to word problems or real world problems. And to me, the key whenever you're doing these sort of problems is you first want to be able to read it through a few times so that you can properly visualize the situation. Then look at the clues that are given to you and determine what you are being asked to solve for. The directions ask us to solve and explain how you know your answer is reasonable. That word reasonable tells me that we're being asked to come up with an estimate first so that we can compare that at the end to our actual answer and see if we're in the ballpark. Number one, Ahmed made trail mix by combining 1.5 cups of nuts with 1 2/3 cups of dried fruit. How much trail mix did he make? All right, so visualize this in your mind. Making the trail mix with these two ingredients, the nuts and the dried fruit. First, let's come up with our quick estimate. We are combining, so we're adding 1.5 to 1 2/3. Think about those benchmark fractions. 1 2/3, we could say, is close to 1.5. So if I think about this, round it down a bit to 1.5, 1.5 plus 1.5 is 3. So my estimate is 3 cups. I'll know my answer is reasonable at the end if I solve it and I get something in the ballpark of 3. Now let's set it up to solve it. We're adding mixed numbers where the denominators are unlike. 1.5 plus 1 2/3. The original denominators given are 2 and 3. What common denominator is going to be a good choice here? 3 is the larger of the two denominators, so I test that out. Is 3 a multiple of 2? No. Then I go through my multiples of 3 until I find the first one that works for 2. 3, 6, 9, 12. Did you see one? 6. 6 is going to be an excellent common denominator. Now, I need to rewrite, using what I know of equivalent fractions, I need to rewrite the 1/2 and the 2/3 so that they both have the common denominator of 6. What I do to the bottom, I do to the top. So, if I'm looking at the 1/2 here, I need to multiply the bottom by 3. Therefore, I'm going to multiply the top by 3. And 1/2 gets rewritten as 3/6. Similarly, with the 2/3, what I do to the bottom to change that into 6 is multiply by 2. I'll do the same to the top. 2 multiplied by 2 is 4. 2/3 gets rewritten as 4/6. Now, 1 3/6 plus 1 4/6, I can add my whole numbers and then add my fractions. Since the denominators match, we let the numerators do the work. And we get 2 7/6. But wait, who's that off in the distance wagging her finger at us? Improper! That British nanny. She's noticing that 7/6 is an improper fraction. We've got to regroup. We've got to clean it up. And so 7/6 on its own, 6 goes into the 7 one time cleanly, and 1's left over. The denominator stays a 6. 7/6 can be regrouped as 1 1/6. Now, combine that with the whole number 2, and we get a final answer of 3 1/6. Is it reasonable? Yes, very close to our estimate. 3 1/6 cups. Remember to put that unit of measure as well. Let's move on to the next problem. Martha bought 10 pounds of apples. She used 2 1/4 pounds to make a pie and 3 1/2 pounds to make applesauce. How many pounds did she have left? Okay, so let's visualize the situation first. Martha's in the kitchen. It's apple day, apparently, and she's got at least 2 purposes for this bushel of apples that she's got. She's making a pie and she's making applesauce. We are being asked to solve for how many pounds did she have left, how many leftover apples, or leftover amount of apples. So it's a multi-step problem. First, we need to figure out or calculate how much she used. Well, she used this amount, 2 1/4, and I'm going to round that up to the benchmark of 2.5 for the purpose of an estimate. And then she used 3.5 pounds to make applesauce. Okay, so for the estimate, 2.5 plus 3.5, I can do that as mental math. It's going to get me 6. 2.5 plus 3.5 is going to get me 6. So my estimate, well, hold on. My estimate is not 6. This is a multi-step problem. What I'm saying is that I'm estimating that she used 6 pounds to make both the pie and the applesauce, but she had 10 pounds to begin with. So my estimate is going to be 10 minus the 6 pounds or so that she used. So I'm going to estimate that there's going to be 4 pounds of apples left over. Let's see if that is true. So first, let's calculate the actual amount that was used. 2 1/4 plus 3.5. We'll calculate this first, and then we'll subtract that from the original 10 pounds that she started with. So we notice right away that we need a common denominator. In this case, 4 seems like a good choice. 2 1/4 is good as it is. 3.5, I need to rewrite the half. What I do to the bottom, multiply by 2. I do to the top, multiply by 2. I can rewrite 1/2 as 2/4. Now, let's combine this parentheses amount, 2 1/4 plus 3 2/4. I can combine my whole numbers. 2 and 3 is 5. I can combine my fractions. 1 1/4 plus 2/4 is 3/4. I get 5 3/4. Now, some of you may be able to solve this as mental math by starting with a 5 3/4 and counting up to 10. And if you can do that, that's great. I'm going to continue my work down here and show you how I could express this. If I use the borrowing from the whole, I'm going to show 10 as 10 and 0/4 minus 5 3/4. Of course, the 0 is smaller than the 3. I need to borrow from the whole, so the whole number goes down by 1, and that whole gets added back in to the fraction. 4/4 gets added in. So I am regrouping whole number 10 as 9 4/4, because now that allows me to subtract. Whole numbers first. 9 minus 5 is 4. 4/4 minus 3/4 is 1/4. And I get an answer of 4 1/4 pounds. The answer is reasonable because, look, the actual is very close to the estimate. Okay, continuing on. Number 3, a rectangle has a length of 6 5/8 inches and a width of 3 3/4 inches. What is the perimeter of the rectangle? Remember, perimeter is when we are totaling up the lengths of each of the sides. Area is a different calculation. That's length times width. So for perimeter, if I just drew a very tiny sketch of a rectangle here, let's say the length as it's given to us is 6 5/8, the width 3 3/4. Okay, so we're being asked to total up these 4 sides. Let's come up with our estimate first. Our estimate is going to be, well, 6 5/8 is close to 6 1/2. I'm going to round that down. And there's going to be 2 long sides, so 6 1/2 plus 6 1/2. 3 3/4 is close to 4. I'll round that up. So 6 1/2 plus 6 1/2 is 13. Plus 4 is 17. Plus 4 again is 21. 21 inches is my estimate. Now, let's come up with the actual. So the actual, I need to use a common denominator. In this case, the denominators are the 8 and the 4. Will the 8 work for the 4? Yes, it will. So I can leave 6 5/8 as it is. I'm going to rewrite 3 3/4 by multiplying the bottom of the fraction by 2 and the top of the fraction by 2. So 3 3/4 becomes 3 6/8. Again, there's 4 sides to my rectangle altogether that I'm adding up. And now let's solve this thing. I'm going to add my whole numbers first. Oops, sorry about the blurred vision there. 6 and 6 is 12, and 3 is 15, and 3 again is 18. Denominator is 8. When the denominators match, let the numerators do the work. 5 and 5 is 10, plus 6 is 16, plus 6 again is 22. Improper! 22 over 8 in the fraction. We know this needs to be cleaned up. This gets converted into, well, 8 goes into 22 twice cleanly. 8 times 2 is 16. The difference between 22 and 16 is 6. The 2 6/8 can actually be reduced to 2 3/4. And now let's combine whole number 18 plus 2 3/4. We get an answer of 20 3/4 inches. Very, very close to our estimate. The answer is reasonable. Number 4, Kara plans to run 15 miles this week. She ran 3 4/5 mile on Monday, 2.5 miles on Wednesday. How many more miles does she need to run this week? Okay. So we can visualize the situation, and it's a multi-step problem. We're first going to calculate how much she ran so far. Then we'll subtract that or take that away from the target of 15 miles to find how many more miles she has left to reach her goal. So first, let's come up with a quick estimate. 3 4/5, let's round that up to 4. 4 plus 2.5 is 6.5. So my estimate over here, I'm just going to say E is equal to 15 minus 6.5, which, and I'm just going to count up here using mental math. This is going to be 8.5 miles. That's my estimate. Now let's solve this. 3 4/5 plus 2.5. Our denominators are the 5 and the 2. The 5 won't work for the 2, but I go through my multiples of 5 and 10 will. So first, let's figure out how much she ran. 3 4/5. I'm going to rewrite as something over 10. What I do to the bottom, multiply by 2. I do to the top, multiply by 2. 3 4/5 becomes 3 8/10. Plus 2.5. Again, what I do to the bottom, multiply by 5. I do to the top, multiply by 5. 2.5 becomes 2 5/10. Improper. She has run 6 3/10 miles so far. All right, now I've got to subtract that out from the 15 that's her target. I'm going to say 15 0/10 minus 6 3/10. I'll borrow from the whole. The 15 becomes 14. The whole gets added back into the fraction as 10 over 10. 0 over 10 plus 10 over 10. I have regrouped 15 as 14 and 10 tenths minus 6 and 3 tenths to get my actual answer of 8 and 7 tenths miles. Very close to our estimate, therefore our answer is reasonable.